Who is the master that most resonates with me? That would be Lilia Iza. Who is Ramachandran? Born in 1951 in Madras, India, he was a boy that was very interested in science instead of sports like the rest of the kids. Since he was little, he started collecting seashells and started to point out the anomalies in life. This attraction to anomalies later on led him to be interested in human anatomical anomalies, which led him to a very specific field of research. When his father realized he was going into a very specific field of study, he tried to convince him to go to medical school so he could have a bigger idea of how the body works and could have a bigger chance in succeeding in the area. Ramachandran agreed, but after a while he got tired of only memorizing information. Although he was interested in the subject, he got bored. He later got a degree from the University of California where he was hired as an investigator, but quickly got fed up with the office hours. Going back to his interest in anomalies, he started working on phantom limbs, which led him to study neuroscience. Why did I select him as a master? First of all, he had a path similar to mine, meaning that he started working in something very general, and once he got bored, he narrowed into his niche of preference. Like Robert Greene says, this is a niche he had to himself, one he could command for years to come, that corresponded to his deepest inclinations and would serve best to the cause of scientific advancement. So what I've learned about him and his story is that by narrowing into what I like and my passion, I can find a niche to explore and develop. I've chosen live event production, which I'm not a pioneer in, but it's an industry that in my country has only started to boom in the last years. So I believe I found a space where I can get in on the ground floor. The second thing I learned from him was simplicity. Greene talks about Ramachandran's studies. He looked for ideas that he could verify through simple experiments, no heavy or expensive equipment. He had noticed that those who got large grants for their research would become embroiled in political games in order to justify the money being spent on them. So this leaves me with the idea that you don't need big expensive gear or a big company backing you financially to make great projects. All you have to do is get out there, meet people, network, and start doing them. Talking about the social intelligence side of things, if I had the opportunity to face Ramachandran, I would ask him two principal questions. First question, do you believe you would have gotten to where you are in your studies faster if you've had a mentor guiding you? I would like to ask this question because if a mentor would have come into place, he could have helped him get to his niche faster. Instead, he had to go through all the steps alone, took a little bit more time going through medical school and then the University of California and finally neuroscience. But a mentor is also a double-edged sword, like Greene says. With mentors and bosses, we project onto them our childhood fantasies, becoming unnecessarily adoring or fearful of authority figures, and creating a stormy and brittle relationship in the process. So I think it would be interesting to see Ramachandran's perspective on working with someone. He didn't have a lot of social interaction or friends growing up, so maybe he would have wanted someone to follow. Or maybe not. The second question would be, do you think you prematurely judge people when they have grants for experimenting? Like mentioned before, Ramachandran says that people with grants were very involved in politics, and that maybe stopped him from collaborating or working with peers that could have helped with experiments. He could be closing doors on himself. Like Greene says, you must avoid the common mistake of making judgments based on your initial impression of people. By letting go of his first impressions he got of people, maybe he could have worked with other doctors in similar areas or related areas that could have pushed his experimenting further. Finally, I'm going to talk about two deadly realities that can affect my journey in the future. My first deadly reality would be rigidity. As an organized person and a little bit obsessive, I like things done a certain way. I know what processes work and what works for me. So when someone comes with a new idea of how they can make it better or how they can change it, I'm very difficult at accepting them. I know it can hurt me in the future. I know I have to let new ideas in, but it's really hard when you're that organized. Number two would be passive aggressiveness. I've always been known to be a passive-aggressive person, and like Greene says, it's a human fear for confrontation. I don't like it. I don't like talking to people, not because of me, because I don't like trying to hurt their feelings. I don't like telling them what they were doing wrong and maybe hurting them in the process, so I try to find a non-confrontational way to say it, and it normally sounds a little bit aggressive. It's something I have to work on in my communication skills. My social intelligence has to get a little bit better on that side, and I know it can really help me in the future.